I don't like nobody telling me what to do with my hair. You don't love yourself, you don't love being a Black woman, you don't want to embrace your hair, blah, blah, blah. If you haven't already, go ahead and click that subscribe button and join the family. So let's get right into this topic. The natural hair movement is dying. Before I go into it, I just want to say, no, I do not believe that the natural hair movement is dying, but it is at a rapidly downward spiral. So let's get into it. So before we go into the reasons why I feel like the natural hair movement is dying, let's start on the backstory of the natural hair movement. I personally feel like this started way back in the early 2000s where Black women were starting to embrace their natural hair, wear their fro out, and it was such a beautiful thing to see. I personally joined the natural hair movement back in high school. That was around 2011, 2012-ish. I was watching the rise of the natural hair movement on social media, on YouTube in particular, and I also followed a few blogs back in the day that really inspired me to want to embrace my natural hair. Some of the YouTubers that I followed back in the day were Natural85, Natural Nisi, Bree Hall, African Beauty was also on the rise back in that time as well. So those ladies really inspired me to want to embrace my natural curls. I personally only followed Black women or women that had my specific hair type back then. And it was really, I feel like it was a really great community to be a part. I feel like they were doing it for the right reasons. They were empowering Black girls and Black women to embrace their natural crown, and it was such a beautiful, amazing thing to see. Now, with every good thing, there always comes some negatives. So here is where I feel like the natural hair community started to take a decline. The number one reason I feel like the natural hair movement is dying and people are just not with it anymore is because simply the natural hair community is toxic. The natural hair community is so toxic. There's so many rules. There's so many things that you can't do. There's hair police. There's overconsumption of products. It became such a very toxic environment to be around, a toxic community to associate with, in my opinion. There was too many rules. Like I don't like the whole rules thing. I don't like nobody telling me what to do with my hair. I don't want your help. I don't want your opinion. If I ask, sure. If I go looking for it, sure. It was just too much information given all at once. There was this movement of not using grease and butters. Like, since when is grease and butters bad for our hair? Back in the day, we were loving the grease and loving using butters and oils on our hair because that's what worked for some of us. That's what was growing our hair. And then the natural hair community comes and they say, no, you can't use butters, you can't use oils, you can't use grease. Then you have the hair typing system that also came, and I feel like that really just divided us as Black women even further. Then it did more harm than good. So the community just became very toxic. I would also like to say I am still a part of the natural hair community. I do have natural hair, but I am more so of a heat trained natural, but we'll get into that later on in the video. To me personally, I just feel like being natural means that your hair isn't chemically processed. I personally don't care about all of the rules and all of the restrictions that comes with being a natural girl, and they just put so much restrictions on us for whatever reason. Like if you're not wearing your hair in an afro, you're automatically deemed as self-hating, you don't love yourself, you don't love being a Black woman, you don't want to embrace your hair, blah, blah, blah. It just became so toxic, and a lot of women just didn't want to be a part of that anymore. Another crucial reason, and I really want us all to be very open and honest with ourselves when it comes to this point that I'm gonna make, and please don't drag me. Well, drag me if you will, but facts are facts. But natural hair is extremely a lot to deal with. It's a lot. I wouldn't want to say that it's hard, but it is hard. It's hard to deal with if you don't have looser hair texture, if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know how to manage your hair type, if you're not using the right products and all sorts of things like that. It's a lot to deal with, and especially if you have long, thick natural hair, it's a lot to deal with. It's expensive to maintain because you have to buy so many. You have to use a lot of product to tame your hair. Natural hair is a lot. It's a lot to deal with. It's time consuming, it's tiresome, and I mean this in a good way. I'm not bashing natural hair. I love natural hair. I love my natural hair, but at the same time, two things can be true at once. It's really hard to deal with, guys. Like, a lot of women don't want to spend the time that it takes to nurture and care for your natural hair. So a lot of women have decided that, hey, you know what, I'm done. And a lot of them have transitioned over to the creamy crack, and that's their prerogative. I'm not judging anybody who decides to return to the creamy crack, but I get it. I understand. Like, it's a lot to deal with. Like I said, especially if you have thicker hair, type 4 hair, it's a lot harder to deal with. And I feel a lot of women went through it blindly. They didn't know what they were getting themselves into. They felt like they were gonna get the looser hair texture, and when they were met with their true hair texture, they weren't prepared for that. So they just automatically went into the natural hair movement with the wrong intentions and with the wrong mindset. So that from the jump just ruined the whole movement and ruined the whole process and time for them, because they didn't go into it with the intentions of embracing the hair that grew out of their head. Because when the natural hair movement really started to get out there, a lot of mixed race and looser curl women became the face of the movement. And in my opinion, personally, this is my opinion, don't attack me, but I personally felt like the natural hair movement was made for women with type 4 hair. The type 4 hair, 4A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I feel like that's what the movement was geared toward. And as the movement developed, the 3ABC girls became the face of the natural hair movement. And I feel like that gave women an unrealistic perception of what having natural hair would look like and what it would be like. I'm not bashing the type 3 hair women, and I'm not saying that they should be excluded from the natural hair movement, but I feel like we have to also be honest and realize that someone of a mixed race or someone that has a looser hair texture is not going to understand the stress, the hardship that women that have the more coarser or the more coilier hair is going to experience. So I feel like once the looser hair women became the face of the natural hair movement, a lot of women wanted to go natural because they saw being natural as having curly, super pretty hair. And once they got natural and they weren't met with that type of curl pattern, then the natural hair movement for them started to go on a decline. Again, the ladies with looser hair, that they became the face of the movement, and that also contributed to texturism. People wanted to have the nice pretty hair. People wanted to have the good hair that came with being natural, but they weren't prepared for all of the different types of hair that you can have when you embrace your natural hair. And I'm not saying that having type 4 hair is bad hair. No, that's not what I'm saying. But we all know when people say good hair, they're referring to the more looser type of textures. Because of the rise in women with the looser hair going public and being the face of the movement, it became very commercialized, and that's when product hoarding became a thing. Product junkies. I consider myself a product junkie. I'm gonna buy some products, okay? Not because people recommend them, but just personally because I like to try out products for myself. But I feel like a lot of influencers were just coming on and just recommending a whole bunch of products to us, and people were eating it all up. And then after they recommend these products for us, they would then come back and then bash the product and say these products were bad or these products weren't good, simply because they had a bad reaction with it. And that's where the rift started to come, because personally, a lady with type 3 hair cannot recommend products to women with type 4 hair, in my opinion. I don't feel like those two worlds collide. Maybe a product will work fine on type 4 hair, but it wouldn't work on type 3 hair, because those two are just not the same. My Birkin, another Birkin, but what makes these two Birkins different? Okay. I also feel like the natural hair movement was used as another tool to separate us as Black women, as Black people in general. It was used heavily to separate us, especially if you had good hair and you had type 4 hair. Automatically you just weren't seen as acceptable in society. If you were to decide to wear your hair out in your fro or in your puff, they would automatically assume that your hair wasn't done. If you don't always have your edges slick, or if your hair isn't neatly fixed in a proper style, I feel like the movement was hijacked by women that it was not initially created for. And I mean this in the most respectful way. I'm not excluding anyone, but at the same time, I just feel like the movement was more dedicated to women of type 4 hair. Because no one was ever calling people with type 3 hair nappy headed, or telling them that they had bad hair or that their hair was hard, or whatever the case may be. Maybe people of other races, probably, sure, but no Black person was telling you your hair was nappy. I don't care what no one says. No one was telling you that. And if they were, obviously that was jealousy, because in the Black community, we all know what good hair means. And let's not act like that's not something that's said, and that's not something that's common within the Black community. Let's be real with ourselves, okay? Another reason that the natural hair movement is on a decline is because Black women are expressive. We love to express ourselves in our hair and the way we dress and just our appearance in general. And I feel like with the natural hair community, they try to box us in that we only can wear our hair in its natural state if you wear weaves, if you wear protective styles constantly, if you don't embrace your natural hair, if you straighten your hair, whether that be with relaxers or with heat, they automatically deem you as self-hating. And I just feel like that is so ignorant, because like I said, Black women are expressive. We are the blueprint. We express ourselves through our hair, and we like to change it up. And I don't feel like we should be placed in a box to constantly have to conform to what society wants us to be, just to prove that we love ourselves. I don't feel like every Black woman that doesn't wear her natural hair is self-hating. I don't feel like that. I don't believe that that's true. I just feel like we should be able to do whatever we want with our hair without society telling us that we're self-hating and we hate ourselves and we don't love our natural hair, yada, yada, yada. There are some women that do not like their natural hair. Yes, that is true, but I don't feel like that's the case for the majority of us. I just feel like as a collective, most women who don't want to be, or who have left the natural community, just wants to be. They don't want to be in the whole I'm Black and I'm proud, so I have to wear my natural hair thing. Like, me personally, like I mentioned earlier, I do straighten my hair. I heat train my hair. I don't wear my hair in its curly state. I am currently trying to nurse my curls back to health because I do have heat damage, but at the same time, I don't feel like that makes me any more or less loving of my hair because I decide to straighten it. I just feel like it's hair and you should be able to do whatever you want to do. I don't think it's like such a big deal that people make it when people decide to perm their hair, or when people decide to go natural. Like, whatever you want to do with your hair, just do it. Like, I don't think it's that serious. I don't understand why people make it such a big issue. Yes, I agree that you should love it, the hair that grows out of your head, but at the same time, you can switch it up. You can change it up. Like, we invented the ish, okay? We should be able to do our hair however we want to do. Like, what other hair type do you know that is as versatile as our hair? We can do braids and it's not gonna pull our hair out. It's not gonna have us bald in the next 2 days. Like, our hair was meant for all of this that we do. Like, being a Black woman is so much more than our hair. So I personally feel like that is probably the #1 reason why a lot of women are ditching the natural hair movement and just embracing who they are, who they want to be, and just not tying their worth and their value to their hair. And the last reason I feel like a lot of women have decided to ditch the natural hair movement, or are starting to slowly step away, is because people are understanding self-care on a much deeper level. People are understanding self-love on a much deeper level. Like, I don't feel like your self-love and your self-worth is tied to your hair. Hair is just hair. You can cut it today and it's gonna grow back, regardless of how you decide to style your hair, what you decide to do. Like, I don't feel like it's as deep as we make it. But there's two sides to a coin, so obviously there's good and bad. But I personally feel like the women who decide that they don't want to be natural, or the women who never went natural, who continue to perm their hair, that's their prerogative, and they've decided to love themselves on a different level. You don't have to embrace your natural to prove that you love yourself. And I feel like a lot of women have realized that, and a lot of women have taken the power back from society on telling us how we should look and how we should feel about ourselves and about the way we present ourselves. Because even the ladies who recently joined the natural hair community, they are setting the standard. A lot of them are not buying into the twist out movement, because once you went natural back in the day, you know, they were pushing twist outs, they were pushing that super curly texture that you couldn't achieve without a twist out or a braid out if you had coarser type 4 hair. Like, let's be real, let's not act like we don't remember that movement. People only accept type 4 natural hair in its pretty state when it looks like good hair. Using this TikTok girl for reference, I can't really remember her name, so I'll just insert it right here. Like, she went on and saying like she doesn't like to do her edges because her edges don't want to be done, and that's facts for some of us that has coarser hair. Like, our hair doesn't always want to be manipulated, our hair doesn't always want to be tamed, and we should be able to go out however we feel, and that's both if you decide to stay natural as well as relax. Like, I don't feel like it's as deep of a deal that the Black community makes it, because it's only us that are against us, because no other race knows how our hair operates. They don't know anything about our hair, only what we put out there. The last thing I'd like to leave with you guys, it's important to know yourself and know what you want for yourself. Like, don't conform to what other people's opinions are, my own included. So if you don't agree with me, that's fine. You don't have to agree with me. Also, I was not trying to bash anyone. I was not trying to single anyone out, and I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings or anything like that. But these are just my opinions, and I feel like we're all entitled to them. So don't get crazy in the comments, please. If you don't agree with me, you don't have to agree with me. Just don't watch the video, okay? And yeah, so this wraps up the video. Again, I do not think that the natural hair movement is completely over, because more and more women are deciding to go natural daily, and just the same, a lot of women are deciding to end their natural hair journey, and both are perfectly fine. You do whatever works for you, babe, and love yourself regardless of how your hair is, whether you're bald or your hair is down by your toes, girl. Please leave any comments that you have down below in the comment section. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and I will try my best to answer any of your questions or any of your comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.